only the high severity problems, elements in the same place. Now we see where they are in the model. And if we keep drilling down, we'll see that there's a lot of mullions, there's some specialty equipment, there's some casework. And if we check now, we'll see which families of casework are on top of each other and how many of them have how many warnings and how many elements are in that warning. So if elements are on top of each other, it's obviously bad, right? If I have two chairs on top of each other, my plan's going to seem like it has one chair, but I'm going to get the wrong estimation number. I'm going to order too many chairs. So it's obviously a critical problem in that case. And then I can go all the way down to the type and the Revit IDs. I can even export this as a CSV. Or I can just kind of give this to a junior employee to go and fix. So that's one example. We can also look at something related to performance. We have a lot of data. So, you can do many reports. This is just another one that I quite like because a lot of people don't have the right philosophy when they're modeling architecture families in Revit, and they think that more detail is better. But it's not the right philosophy, right? How much detail should we put in families? We should put enough to know what it is. We should put enough to make sure that we can detect clashes. And sometimes if we do renderings, we can add a little extra geometry for renderings, but that's going to slow down the entire project, right? So we need a strategy for renderings where we're either going to potentially have levels of details like fine, medium, coarse in the Revit family that handles it, or we can even have a work set just for the rendering elements that we can hide or show, because when we're not doing a rendering, we don't need the high quality geometry. That's not useful for Revit. That's more of a SketchUp mentality. So let's look at this desk. There's 385 of them. They're about 7,000 triangles each. And this equals to 2.6 million out of the 27 million in the triangle. Now, 27 million, that's going to be a slow model in Revit. That means that your employees are going to move around and look at their screen with the little ball, and they're going to be paid to look at a screen and do nothing. So, if you have 15 employees working on this project, you're wasting their time and you're paying them to look at a screen and do nothing. You don't want that, right? Especially if the reason for that is, screws and little details that nobody cares about, like these little things here, these plates, these extrusions here. So a good BAM manager can go look at this and get rid of all this garbage. And then your employees are going to be paid to work instead of looking at their screen. Or let's look at this family. It's absolutely terrible. So somebody thought it was a good idea, much like trying to show off in SketchUp, they thought it was a good idea to model these chords. But this family is 87,000 triangles just for this. This is completely ridiculous, completely useless. Let's look at another one here. This heatsink here is completely useless. Who cares? It's in the ceiling, right? Nobody's ever going to see it. It could just be one big square or one big circle instead of trying to show off a heatsink and a wire inside of a ceiling. So big waste of resources. This will help you identify what's the worst, what's the worst waste of geometry in your project. Here's another example of a more auditing, related report. So this report looks at grids, and it says this grid number 1 here is present in the architecture model, but it is missing from the MEP model. And also here we're seeing the pin data. So any X means the grid is not pinned, right? So normally grids and levels, we want to pin them so that they cannot be moved by accident. Now let's say you've have everything pinned, you can hide that data, and now you just see what's missing, etc. And we also have 2 models that don't even have any grids. Yikes, that's pretty bad, right? Normally a BIM standard will not allow that kind of stuff. Now, here's the thing. You can use these template as is. You can modify them. You have access to all of this data in here, and you can learn how to use this data from the reports. So for example, if I click on this table, I see that we use the element and element in warnings table, and I can see exactly which elements were dragged into here. So there's part of it that is really important for you to learn, much like you started learning Revit 10 years ago or whenever. As you start learning Power BI, you can make your own tools. And it's a really wonderful career, to be honest. It's well paid. It's more relating to the information in building information modeling. And it allows you to have a lot of power on the tools and the workflows and create these really, creative reports that can satisfy the exact needs of your company. So here in green are the tables that we use. And when I hover over it, we see exactly where the data came from and how it's used in here. Same thing with this data here. We see that we're doing a count of distinct, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you may start to think of different ways of using the data. So for example, here we have a model inside of Revit and we have the same model inside of Naviswork, and we've done some clash detection and then we exported an XML file from Naviswork. And now we can first off, we can click on any clash and we'll see what it's made out of. So there's two elements, a column and a floor, and we see them in here. Now I understand the clash, right? And I can change this user interface before I publish it. I can show or hide whatever I want. I can select a model. I can focus on a particular category, a particular clash set, who it's assigned to, the status of the clash, or I can just click in here. These are all the clashes that are reviewed. These are all the clashes that are active. This is who it's assigned to. So it really gives you a lot of power to control how the data is presented, what is presented, make a really interactive element. And the user interface in Naviswork is terrible, right? So this is much more friendly. This is something you can share online and everybody's going to be able to access it in a much better way. Or here's another report type. So here we use this tool called CarboLife, which checks the carbon usage inside of Revit. And it tries to assign a material using AI. It's also an open source tool, so you can go modify it and improve it. It tries to assign a material automatically using AI. And then if you find that there was a mistake, you can simply override manually what the material should be. So once you do that, you can also export all of the data. And what we've done in here is simply imported all of the data that was exported. And now we get the usage in terms of the carbon usage. So I can see for every element which material it was originally, which material it thought that this was. So in this case, in the model, it said cast in place concrete or CIP concrete. And then CarboLife automatically assigned concrete screed. Now, whether that's accurate or not, that's another question, and that can be changed inside of Revit. But with that data, what we have is that we can, one second. With that data, what we have is the total amount of carbon usage from that material. And then we can also give a color code based on, what the materials that we've detected to see where the worst use of carbon is. And, once again, it's kind of like you can customize this with whatever data is coming in and do your own workflows. So this really opens up the world of Power BI to Revit and IFC users. And I hope that you can get your imagination going a little bit. Now, we're going to have some very exciting tools in the upcoming weeks that we've been working on for many months. So I'm super excited to show you all of that. And we also are going to be working on different templates for different workflows, showing you how to customize them for your own needs. And also, showing more and more integration with different sources of data and different software to bring in data from many, many, many places and unify it in a single user interface that you can control however you'd like. So I hope this gives you a good little intro into the software and hopefully gets your imagination going a little bit as to what you would want to integrate with this. And like I said, this is a really interesting career and a really interesting avenue. It's a little bit like Revit 10 years ago. If your imagination is there and you have the intellectual capability to dive into this, it's a really good challenge for improving what your office can do with data and share it in a very easy and intuitive way. So hopefully this inspired you a little bit, and I hope to talk to you soon. Thank you.